And that's one of the things that allows me to go out on photography trips for 9 months of the year and then work on my business for the other 3 months, is because it still provides everything that I would provide if I was home while I'm away. And that was my main goal when starting this 7 years ago.
My name is Dave Morrow. 9 months of each year, I live out of my vehicle. I travel the wilderness by foot on an endless backpacking and landscape photography trip. I want to teach and share the photography and outdoor skills that I use on these trips. I don't want to spend hours editing video or sitting in front of a computer, so I made some rules. First, everything's shot on GoPro. This was the best way I found to record quickly on a consistent basis. Second, I can only spend 20 minutes editing each video. So thanks for watching, and welcome to the Landscape Photography Journals.
So today I wanted to talk to you guys about why I don't freelance for my photography business and why I never will. So anything that I talk about on my videos or on my website or anywhere else is all just my personal experience and the thought process that led me to the choices that are part of that experience, such as the discussion I'm going to have today. So if it's not something that you feel will work for your business, just because I do it doesn't mean it's correct. My goal is just to help to get ideas out there that drive my thought processes, and maybe it will help somebody to learn something or see something they didn't see before. So even if they decide not to freelance or to freelance, it doesn't matter. At least they have more facts backing it or more logic backing it where they can make the best decisions possible. And that's always my goal with these kind of videos. So these are the reasons why I don't freelance. So you basically have two different ways, broad view, that you could run a photography business. You could be a freelancer, meaning people will hire you out to do projects. So they might have a project where you're going to go photograph a specific area or get a specific shot, and they will pay you for the project as a whole or per hour that it took you to do the project. So the freelancer is always trading time for money. And the other side of freelancing is that once you're done with the project, it's basically the property of whoever paid you for it. So you might get all this great creative work done, do something you're really proud of, and then once you're done, you have to hand it off to somebody that now owns it. So you can't use, and you don't own all the intellectual property or creativity that came out of it. So those are kind of how freelancing is set up. Now, the other side of that is running a business that is just purely entrepreneurial. Now, I don't really like that word entrepreneurial, but I know everybody knows what it means, so I'm just going to use it. So basically what an entrepreneur does, and this is how I run my business, is they create their own intellectual property. So they create new things that they don't think yet exist to a point. They improve upon old things that they think could be bettered, but they're doing it all on their platform. So they own the creativity behind it. They own the ideas. They own the entire process that went into it. It's not getting sold off at the end as it would be to a freelancer. So what happens with a lot of entrepreneur businesses is a lot of them don't make it. It sounds like a really sexy thing to be an entrepreneur, but usually it takes a whole lot of work up front that you have to direct. So not only are you kind of the manager of the business if you're running a single man business like me, but you're also the creative director. You're also the director of operations, meaning you have to lay out every step you need to do. And you're also the creator. So for some people, that's a huge turnoff. So they go to the freelance model where they just get to create. They have a manager. They have people that are telling them what to create, and they get to be creative inside that box. So it's great for some people. But on my end, I started as an engineer. I was an aerospace engineer for 6 years, building 777 model jumbo jets for Boeing. So the engineer part of me really enjoys, let me switch hands here, building out systems and seeing how those systems work. So that kind of goes hand in hand with being an entrepreneur. So instead of freelancing, what I do is, huge blowdown across the trail. I create knowledge products, meaning I share information and knowledge with people, but my goal is to always be working on something that is 100% inspiring to me. And I couldn't do that with freelance because some of the projects I might be really inspired by that I was assigned as a freelancer, but other projects might be like, I don't really want this project, but I need to make a living. So I chose to do something that I would always be driven to do, and that is build into my own business. Now, the main downside with most entrepreneur one-man businesses is that at first the money's gonna be low. Like in your first 1 to 2 years, even if you're working really hard, you're dumping all your time and energy to building your first product, or your first piece of knowledge, or your first piece of creativity, and you're also dumping your time into gaining an audience. So you have all this invested work up front, and you're not making money dollar per hour. You're only gonna make the money once you get your product or knowledge, information, creativity, art, anything else out to people. And once you do that, once you have an audience, you don't have to trade time for money, meaning your product can scale. If you have a knowledge product, you can sell it to 10 people with the same amount of ease as you can sell it to 1 million people. But until you get those 1 million people showing up, which takes a lot of time, you're taking the big risk and time investment to say, hey, I believe in myself long term. I'm going to build this business up that I own the whole framework. I own the actual business, I own the knowledge within it, I own the creative process within it, and everything else. So for me, that's very motivating because I can constantly drive myself. Does the trail go through here?
No.
All right, cool.
I didn't want to mess up your clip.
Oh, it's all good, dude. We ran into a dead end of the river. When I'm creating stuff that I create the whole framework for, I'll create a project and I'll say, hey, I want to build this thing. It doesn't exist yet. And then I have to build not only the knowledge that goes into it, but everything that I need to sell it, all the background information to run a website, coding the sales page, coding the sales process, and everything else that goes into making a successful product. But the nice part is that once you have that framework set up, and once you start to gain an audience, you can solely concentrate, well, here's a swamp, on creating the things that you're really passionate about or really motivated to create. So after the first 3 to 5 years of running an entrepreneur business where you're investing all your time, all your money, and not getting a monetary return that's large, you'll start to see things open up and you'll have the whole framework. And then you can start to put all your time into creative aspects, all your time into building things that will help people out. And that's extremely motivating for me because I know that as I build knowledge over time, as I'm constantly working on stuff that I'm motivated by, I'm going to create more and more things that are hard to create, meaning I'm going to own them because I didn't freelance them off to somebody, but I'm also going to better my own process, which I can teach back to people. So when I look back in 40 years from now in my business, I will own every single part of my business. So I'm kind of building up the value of my business through things I create over the long term. Whereas if you're freelancing, you're building all this value, but then you're trading the value off for money to a company, and then you're repeating the process. So if you do this for year after year after year as a freelancer, once you get to be at the end of your career, you don't have anything to show for it except the value that other companies will pay you. You don't actually own a bunch of underlying products. So essentially, with an entrepreneur kind of business, you're making a large investment up front, but as you grow that business over time, it gets more and more valuable. You have more and more motivation to build it bigger, but then you can kind of step back, at least how I have mine set up, and you can let automation run and you can go out and take long trips. You can spend most of the year backpacking, taking long breaks from the internet and thinking about the new ideas that you want to create. And that's something that really motivates me. I couldn't really be motivated by having to concentrate on somebody else's product or dumping all my time and energy into building somebody else's business. So I think you can kind of do both sides of that. You could be a freelancer and an entrepreneur to make some money when you start out, but I think it's crucial for everybody to know kind of how both of those models work, because if you don't decipher which one you want to do, you can't just half-ass both. You can't be a half good freelancer and a half good entrepreneur, because then you'll just be broke and you'll get the downsides of both. So by choosing one or the other and just investing in yourself and trusting yourself that you will think this through and that you will think for the long term of your business, this is how I try to look at my long-term business. Now, I've been running my website. I do everything through my website. Not a single dollar that I make comes from anything outside of my website. So I don't do affiliate marketing. I don't do freelance. I don't market. I don't do anything with advertising because that's not stuff that will drive me long term. And it's also stuff that takes time away from me building the stuff that I really care about on my website for my business, and things that I know that might not produce money or knowledge or help right now, that if I keep dumping into that, long term it'll be much more valuable than all the time for money transactions of that list that I just went through. So that's kind of how I look at my business, and those are the decisions that I'm looking at every time I make a choice when I want to get into something. I'm saying, is it going to be a value long term to me? Is it going to be a value long term to my business? And is it something that I'm 100% interested in for the long term to build out? Because if it's not, I'm going to have to force myself to work, and I'm suddenly just going to be employed chasing time for money relationships and chasing money again. That's not really a place that I want to be. So my goal is to just constantly produce knowledge, constantly show the path I've taken, as well as the mistakes that I've made, and kind of get it out there for people and articulate it in a way that they can understand. But if you're going to go the freelance route, great. If it works for you, just make sure you know all the facts of what's happening, and make sure you look at the long term and have a plan for when you get older, that you won't have an actual company that has underlying value. Meaning your company might have a great reputation, like you're a killer freelancer, you can charge a whole lot of dollars per hour, but you don't actually own all the creative products that you sold off in your 40-year career of being a freelancer. With an entrepreneur, it's going to be a lot more time, money investment up front, but as you grow over time and you get a larger and larger audience, you create more knowledge, you learn more and more about yourself, you learn more and more about your process, and you create things that drive you forward to the next level. You're really going to see that return on your investment go up and up and up, and you'll be able to not necessarily work less, but spend more time working on the things that you really love working on, like for me, creative stuff, being out here, and less time working on like administrative stuff, like setting up systems, answering emails, doing a bunch of other stuff, because you will have a knowledge that underlies your business, so your business will continue to grow with value over time. And even if you decide to quit one day or do something else, you still have this huge knowledge database as a website. You still have all this value you can provide to people. And that's one of the things that allows me to go out on photography trips for 9 months of the year and then work on my business for the other 3 months, is because it still provides everything that I would provide if I was home while I'm away. And that was my main goal when starting this 7 years ago. So I'm going to learn a lot more along the process. I'm going to continue to better myself, but my goal is just to teach that back to people and constantly be questioning what I'm doing and making sure it's in line with my long-term goals. So that is the reason that I don't freelance. Hopefully it'll help you to see some different alleyways you could take with your own photography business and learn something from it. But once again, it's not going to be for everybody. Different people have different ways they like to create, but if it's for some people, hopefully it'll help them out. So have a nice day, guys. Take care.